This week, the public theologian and founder of the On Being Project, Krista Tippett, summed up our current moment this way. She said, "This time to be alive stretches us in every dimension between tenderness and tumult. We are stretched between tenderness and tumult." I feel that way. I suspect many of you do too. Stretched between my commitment to hope. I feel that way sometimes too. Stretched thin between my commitment to hope and to try to live by the values of our faith and to put compassion and love at the center at one end, and my horror and devastation I love that that baby is being carried out to the words horror and devastation. We're just keeping it real here. And my horror and devastation at the perils befalling our country and our world on the other. This week I spent a little time on a website called Trump's Climate and Clean Energy Rollback Tracker. I don't need to tell you that the news is not good. How do we honor Earth Day when so much is being dismantled and destroyed? Our spiritual ancestors were the literal inventors of the Puritan work ethic. And their culture lives deep in many of our bones. And the question that most of us ask ourselves when faced with terrible news is, what more can we do? And our answer is usually that we need to work harder, to give more, to stretch ourselves thinner. Sometimes I worry that I am contributing to your stretched thinness by sending you endlessly long emails every single Friday morning with requests for help from about 3 million truly excellent causes and worthy organizations, all needing your money and your time to continue their good and urgently needed work, the church included. Today I want to suggest something other than working harder and doing more. Something that might feel as counterintuitive to you as I confess it does to me. But maybe the most vital and important work we can do for this hurting world begins with the quiet, persistent tending of our own souls. I'm going to repeat that because I know it comes as a shock to some of us. Maybe the most vital and important work we can do for this world begins with the quiet, persistent tending of our own souls. Joseph Fasano's beautiful poem that Lisa read to you, instructions for having a soul, feel like some good operating instructions for the kind of soul tending I am talking about. Take it out in the rain, sometimes he writes. Your soul has vast, invisible wings that gather dirt and need rinsing. I love that image. I love the idea that our souls are not pristine, untouchable things we have to protect. They are things with wings that get dirty and ragged from dragging in the mud, weighed down by our worries and fears and endless to-do lists. Fasano reminds us that when we feel like we are breaking, when it feels like our own souls are trying to kill us, it is because we have neglected them for so long. It is because we have ignored them and refused to feed them the food they need. Looking into another person's eyes for longer than a minute. Reading long, hard books. Being taken on journeys, staring into the depths of the sea and kneeling in places that are holy, like the ground or the wet sand at the ocean's edge. I believe it is possible that paying attention to what our own souls need, that tending our own souls is good for others, and that it is ultimately good for our families, our communities, and our world. And I know that not everything we do can be soul tending. I know that the bills have to be paid and the dog needs to go to the vet and the car has a mysterious bad smell we cannot find the source of. I know we need to take care of so many things. I remember years ago when my children both came home from school with bad cases of head lice. The very same week, I was supposed to preach to you a sermon about finding wonder and awe. I spent some time wondering, during the long hours of nitpicking that week. It was not the kind of wonder I had intended to preach about. But I figured out something so important, and it has stayed with me, because strangely and completely unexpectedly, those hours I spent combing through my children's extra thick hair were actually kind of lovely. My children were happy because I gave them candy and lots of extra screen time because I didn't want head lice to be traumatic for them. And for me, I had to put all of my other work aside. And for those hours, I just combed my children's hair. And I remember thinking during those hours about the relationship between tending and tenderness, and how with tenderness even head lice can become okay, which is actually sort of a miracle. And so I had something to preach that Sunday after all. The things we do to tend to the souls of others, if done with tenderness, also tend to our souls. This was so evident to me yesterday. right here in this building, when at least 250 people gathered in this room to celebrate the life of Maureen Moisson. She was a person who spent pretty much her entire life tending quietly and carefully and so attentively to the souls of others. And in return, so many people helped make yesterday beautiful. Her vast, extended family showed up with these outrageous flowers and poems. Former neighbors drove hours just to be here. The food was abundant and gorgeous, and we needed so much help. We needed multiple ushers and greeters and parking attendants and chair movers and kitchen volunteers and dishwashers and punch servers. And everyone seemed to do all of this work with such gladness, with such tenderness. And I wonder if maybe Earth Day this year can be an invitation into tenderness, an invitation into soul tending, an invitation into remembering that we don't just live on the earth, we are of this earth. And when we tend to it, when we put our hands in the soil to plant, when we walk in the woods and fall in love with the wild, forgotten things, maybe something miraculous can happen. And that as we heal ourselves, we help heal the planet, because we cannot fight for something we do not love. And we cannot love a planet we do not actually inhabit. So maybe tending to our own souls is an act of resistance against a culture that wants us to be distracted and numb and disconnected from the earth, from each other, and from ourselves. How do we do it? Fasano gives us a beautiful starting point. You can open the window for the trapped wren in the cellar. This is where we engage in what is called the theology of the small. We start where we are, doing the thing we can, refusing the urge to be overwhelmed by the magnitude of the earth's problems. And we act with faith that what we do matters. Because I don't think the soul speaks the language of magnitude and abstraction. I think our souls speak the language of the small, of the trapped wren, of believing one child's anger. It speaks the language of naming forgotten things, learning the ways of the animals so we know them, which leads to caring about them. I spent some time this week learning about the differences between sea lions and seals. I wanted to be able to tell the kids which thing was which in the book we read earlier, so I had to learn the difference. Sea lions have visible external ear flaps, long, hairless front flippers used for walking on the land, and a loud bark. Seals have small ear holes, short furry flippers and move on land by wiggling their bellies. I watched some videos. I fell a little bit in love with sea lions and seals, and it was very good for my soul. I want you to, this week, as the weather continues to turn to spring and our part of the earth continues its gorgeous waking up, to tend to your own soul. If this does not come easy for you, start with just one small thing. You might find a park bench, put your phone away, and sit on it. You might look into the eyes of your partner, or your child, or your cat, or the moon. You might stop to notice the bright forsythia bush that blooms yellow for such a brief time, even though you are already late, because it is not too late. It is not too late to wake up your soul. All it wants is to live, to keep becoming. So stand out in the rain today and let it rinse the dirt off your tired, beautiful wings. It's not too late.